Welcome to the Wellness Amazon podcast. This is a podcast for highly sensitive people, people that have high intuition and are just in tune with themselves and the outer world. Come and listen to multiple different high spectrum subjects and just peek behind the curtain. But I warn you, once you peek behind the curtain, you can never go back. Have fun. Enjoy. All right, y'all. Welcome to the Wellness Amazon podcast. And we have two amazing guests again today. We have Mark, who is a USMC and law enforcement veteran. Thank you for your service. And he is currently working at a treatment center for other veterans, active duty, and first responders as a clinician. He's currently a licensed chemical dependency counselor intern working on his licensed professional counselor certification and graduates with his master's in clinical mental health counseling next month. Wow. That was a mouthful too.
Right? It is.
Yeah, and we have his gorgeous wife, Alia, who has a bachelor with a dual emphasis in psychology and communication and a master's in psychology. She worked in the social service field for many, many years, started as a peer counselor when she was in high school, so super early.
That's a long time ago.
And then she worked at a domestic violence shelter after that in high school and worked in and around child protection services and foster families for, I don't know, a decade?
10 years, maybe?
Yeah.
No.
And yeah, you became foster parents and then adoptive parents yourself through that journey. And she currently works as a tattoo artist and uses her listening and communication skills while she is poking people with a needle.
Same.
Yeah. It's the tattoo artist and the hairdresser. They have to have these abilities, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, guys, for being here. It's great to have you. I need to try not to shake the table so much. So, with you both having such a huge background in, psychology, but also then as a family going through military time, and now your kids also being in the military, going through deployments, being really in that realm of PTSD. But then also, I know, Mark, you're like an HSP, right? You're very sensitive to noises and just stimuli. So what is your connection in your family dynamics with there's the HSP trait and then there's also maybe the residual PTSD trait?
Definitely say that one of the things that I found is that if I am around a lot of people and there's a lot of stimulation, I have to take a break from that. And so I just spent a week in Phoenix for training with the VA. And I was sharing with Leah that I am spent and I'm very exhausted from that. It is not necessarily the conference itself, but just the event and being around people, around a lot of noise and that kind of stuff. So, and then mix that with my PTSD, with being hypervigilant, and it's a lot. So, I think one of the hard things about having a combination of the two is that when I'm not at home, my mind tells me that I'm not safe, even though I'm in a safe environment, and I don't sleep well. And then last night, being my first night home, I fell asleep right away, and so I was able to get a good night's sleep. And Leah tried to have a conversation with me, and
I turned off the light and he rolled over, and maybe 30 seconds later I was going to ask him something, and then I heard him snoring. I'm like, that is impressive. I can't do that. That's impressive.
That's great. That's great to hear that you just going into your safe space gave you what you needed to calm your mind and everything. How do you know to distinguish the two? Because I remember when we had the episode about the ADHD, they can overlap so much that sometimes you don't know. Is this just because HSP is more like that's a character trait? It's just a part of you. PTSD is something that gets done to you, kind of. You're not necessarily born with it. How do you know which one is just showing its face?
I don't think I always do know which is the other, except for the times that they get triggered at different events. I was like, that's the PTSD. Here come the spicy memories. I recently had that last month where I came across something heading home. There was a vehicle accident, and so I turned around to go check on them, and one of the drivers had some serious injuries and vaginal breathing, and so that took me back to my time in law enforcement with responding to all the vehicle accidents and fatal investigations. So I worked a lot of fatal investigations over the years, and so I thought I was fine, and then I got home and I was talking to Leah, and I realized that my hands are shaking, and so I was like, "Well, I guess I'm not fine."
And then we talked about how, at least now, with everything he's been through and all the counseling he's been through and the schooling for counseling, he's able to come home and identify what's going on with himself and then talk to me about it. In many past years, he wasn't able to do that. And so he would just shut down. For years we went through that with trauma, being in law enforcement for over 23 years and being a law enforcement family for that long. He would come home and literally just shut down. And I know any law enforcement spouse knows what that looks like. And then once Mark started going to counseling and processing a lot of this, now when it does happen, he can come home, we can talk about it, and he's able to process and work through it so much better than before. Well, before he wasn't working through it. It was just, bottlenecking, basically.
Yeah.
So, and I think back to your question about the difference between HSP and hypervigilance or PTSD symptoms, I think for a lot of people, like you said, HSP is just a part of who you are. It's just a character trait. So it's something you're born with. You're going to experience those things throughout your life, even if you can't identify them for a long time. With PTS, it's a traumatic event or a series of traumatic events that creates it. And so there's going to be a part of your life where you can identify, this is where this started. Now, when there's people with childhood trauma who have complex PTSD, CPTSD, they're not going to be able potentially to identify when it started or to think back to a time when it was just HSP before the trauma. So I think there's so much in there where it's so ingrained, but people are experiencing the same things. I think for me, the difference with HSP, it can be difficult to deal with, but it's, I think, easier once you learn what it is and learn coping skills and learn what works for you. I think it's a lot easier to deal with than the hypervigilance and the other things that come with having post-traumatic stress. Of course, I mean, they are two different things, but there's definitely overlap.
Right. And it's great when you mention your way to how much effort and time and work goes into all of this for such a long time now, to now be able to say, I can now identify this and what that actually means. What I mean, it's crazy how you go from one thing to the next, where it's now almost like you're completely a different person just because you get that tool. But how much work had to go into this and how much time had to go into this to actually get to that place.
Yeah.
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 Mark, do you see that in your work? Because I know you just constantly work with people that experience this. Do you see these, if somebody comes in and you get a sense that they might be also an HSP, that there's a difference, so to speak, in what they have to do in order to mitigate their PTSD versus their HSP?
Yeah, I think some of the folks that I work with, some of them it's easy to identify, especially it's easier to identify if someone doesn't have complex PTSD. And so, but the majority of the population, they have complex PTSD. And, having complex PTSD myself, I thought what I went through uh, wasn't that bad. I would say that I spent so many years of not working through it and um, normalizing it and minimizing a lot of things that I went through. And so, and that's common with the veteran and first responder population. And so they minimize events that they've been through in their lives, and even those that have multiple combat deployments will minimize the things that they have done. So, like, well, I still have the ability to work, still have all my parts of my body. Nothing was lost, and so there's other veterans out there who've gone through more difficult situations. So that's one of the things that we deal with is the minimization of things, and I think not everyone realizes that they might be HSP. And honestly, HSP, I didn't really know a lot about it until Lee and I started talking about it this week. And oh, that makes sense. And I've watched your first podcast about it. And I was like, okay, I'm interested. And so, the coping skills to deal with that and PTSD can be difficult. So many different coping and grounding skills that are out there. The individual has to find what works for them. And so, uh, meditation doesn't always work for everyone. Initially, I had a hard time doing meditation. And then once I started practicing it more, when I first started doing it, I would fall asleep because I was able to clear my mind and relax my body. And so I was like, okay, apparently I needed that. So, but that was also part of the sleep deprivation that I've been experiencing. So, be able to actually let my mind and my body be relaxed was a new experience. And so, with the different meditations out there, some work really well for me. Some don't so much, such as the sound bath meditation. I can't do it.
It's way too overstimulating for him.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's part of the tinnitus.
It could be.
'Cause he's got that constant ringing in his ears from the Marine Corps, and that's what I thought. Maybe it irritates that in a way.
It could be.
Yeah. That's a lot of vibration in your ear. Yeah.
Yeah.
For someone who's listening has no clue about any of this, right? What are your HSP traits and what are some symptoms of PTSD?
I'd say the overstimulation is definitely one of them. I've never really liked big crowds. I never liked being around things where there's a lot of stuff going on, and so usually I have to, you know, find some quiet time and quiet space away from all that if I spend much time doing that. And so uh, when Lee and I go out to different places, Leah checks in with me to see how I'm doing, and so and then sometimes she could just look at me and know it's time for us to leave.
Time to go.
Yeah, and so and with the PTSD, it's just a lot of hypervigilance. Thinking about where the exits are, where the potential danger is in a certain situation. So, uh, you know, it's something as simple as sitting in the parking lot waiting for someone to come out of the store or come out of the bank. Most people feel comfortable leaving their seatbelt on and the doors unlocked. I can't do that. No way. My seatbelt's off, the doors are locked, and I am very aware of my surroundings. Not everyone does that. It was like,
Mm-hmm.
and when I shared that with someone, I was like, "Why do you have your seatbelt on?" And they thought I was asking a really strange question when I asked that. It's like you need to be able to pop out of your car if I need to and address the danger or run away. That's not a normal response.
Just for a cop.
Like for me, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
It's great that you have that connection too, where I can tell that Aaliyah can look at you and know, gotta go, and then also that there's just, we're going, we're not staying, we're leaving like right now. Which is such an important thing when you have a partnership, that you have someone who understands both PTSD and HSP, right? Because both can be very overwhelming.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For me, if we go into a crowded space, busy restaurant, overstimulating, I'm very aware of all of it, but I also have the ability to put up walls and block so I can focus on what I need to. But I've noticed if I'm too tired, if I'm overtired, I can't do it. And I just immediately get overstimulated. It's just too much.
Mm-hmm.
It's too loud. I can't focus on. I mean, I've been a mom for a long time. So it's always like, where are my kids? Two of them are adults now, but I still have a little one and we have a grandbaby. So it's like, I need to be able to focus on them. I don't feel good. I've just noticed that over time, I'm really good at blocking out what I need to, focusing on what I need to, unless I'm too tired. And then it's insane and we just need to leave. But for the most part, I do okay, and I'm watching him, and I'm like always watching him to see how he's reacting to the loud noises or the loud people, or if we're at a restaurant or even like a party at a restaurant and there's people drinking, and that that level starts to go up of that craziness. And so we don't stay late, we don't drink, we don't do that stuff, and it's just too much. So come we just get out of there and come home, and we're in our space, and all is better.
Yeah, and we have talked about this before too, where your lifestyle, for you, like the sleeping part, that's a lifestyle part, right? Huge influences your threshold. How much can you take? And
Yeah.
that's great to know that you cannot block this out when you're tired. It's just all
Yeah.
streaming in. Yeah.
Yeah. Then it's like, nah, let's go home now.
Mm-mm.
Uh,
Do you think that HSP traits and then PTSD traits, even though that's probably the wrong term, but that they can trigger each other, that they can influence each other?
it's a good question. I think they definitely influence each other. Um, I don't know if I would say they trigger each other necessarily, but if you are an HSP who then has PTS on top of it, like they're going hand in hand no matter what. That HSP is just stacking on to the PTS. And I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. So at least the good part I could say is now you have two things that you can learn coping skills for both things that work on the same symptoms. So you can look up and research HST and find out, like you talked about it in a podcast or several, about different things you can do to mitigate some of the negative side effects. And then with PTS, you have a whole bunch of information you can look up for that as well. And like, okay, now I've got this huge toolbox. This is awesome. Now I can figure out what works for me. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
The interesting thing is with the work that I do now, I hear about different things, and so when I find something that is really interesting, like reading about the Vegas nerve, you know, that is so in tune with PTSD, with our fight, flight, freeze, fawn responses, and so um, I knew that when, after getting help, that there's no going back to who I was or who I thought I was before all of that, and so there's a new baseline now for me, and so um, the you have your I'd say your back of vagus nerve is your uh, the nerves that tell you whether you're in a safe environment or if it's time to fight, flight, and so and then your front vagal nerve is telling you that you're in a safe space and you can relax, and so um, and sometimes it's hard to do that, and so especially if you don't know uh, any grounding techniques or any coping mechanisms that are going to help you get to that spot. And so, and sometimes one of the things that we tell veterans, and I've experienced myself, is sometimes medication is the help to get through that stuff. And so that was one of those things that I was against initially. I was like, no, I don't want to be in a place where I have to count on medication to help me get through different things. And so uh, I'll just learn the grounding and coping skills that I need and how to get through it. And so, but I come to realize that not a, it doesn't always work. And so I need to go and look at, okay, it's time to take medication for that.
Along with the coping
Along with the
skills.
coping
Yeah.
skills. So.
And then, of course, it's not something that everybody has to stay on for a lifetime. It's to get through those hard parts where you're learning how to use the coping skills effectively. And then a lot of people can wean off with doctors' assistance, any kind of medication. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had the same journey about the psychiatrist, I think, explained it to us like, okay, you're in the ditch and you just need to get the cart out of the ditch. Once it's out of the ditch, we can look at other things, but we cannot do this with just meditation and coping skills on its own. We're going to do this with medication, and once you are at a place where you can wean off the medication, so the worst kind of thing is like behind you, and then you're good to go. And it's not there shouldn't be any shame around that either.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And everybody who knows me knows I'm the biggest proponent of all natural and never touching a pharmaceutical, but actually pharmaceuticals do have a place.
Sure. Yeah.
Sometimes it's just something that we need to help us help ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is working with the veteran population is like, well, what meds were you on before you discovered you had PTSD? And a lot of times I'm on cholesterol medication, I'm on blood thinners, or I'm on medication for high blood pressure. So you're willing to take medication for that, but you're not willing to take care of medication, take mental health medication, I guess, to help minimize some of the symptoms. It was like, help me understand why
That's different.
So it is. And so, but there's the stigma with PTSD. And so sometimes it could be difficult to come to the realization that I was like, all right, this is part of me. And coming to that acceptance of this is something I'm now going to have to deal with for the rest of my life in one way or another. And so, and that can be scary, coming to that realization. And so, um, But well, we know that you can work through all those things, um, but you really have to be diligent about what you're doing. So, and sometimes you have folks that are not consistent with medication management, not consistent with meditation, coping skills. So, one of the things that I'm guilty of initially was okay. I've done the counseling. I've been on medication management. Things are good. Things are good at home. I don't need this stuff anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I'm just going to stop. And things are good until they're not.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And all those things are building on regular consumption, right? You need to be regular on them. It's just like people that meditate like once a month. It's like, it's better if you do it a little bit more regular.
Yeah.
mhm.
Or if you're on blood pressure meds and you only take those once a month,
Right?
really gonna do you
Yeah.
any good.
And I think it's a stigma still that we don't see mental health as part of health. We just look at the body and the bodily function. So understandably, so we don't die, right? We need to keep the body moving, but the mind gets left out a lot of times.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do
Like I
you,
remember in the Marine Corps, that's funny. We referred to the psych doc as the wizard, and so even to this day, the psych doc still gets referred to as the wizard. And I'm like,
It's magic.
yeah, I like,
It's got magic pills.
like that dude's a quack. How's he gonna help me?
oh, I actually like that name, the wizard, but if it's meant in a negative way, like, okay, sorry. I'm curious, and I'm super curious because honestly, Mark, I am so happy that you're here because I have not had a lot of touch points with HSP men. It's a lot of times it's women. Every once in a while, I have a guy who's like, "No, I'm not an HSP," and I'm like, "I think you are. You were, you have some traits there." But do you work with men and women alike, or is it dominantly men?
It's dominantly men. We do have women that come to our facility, but they're on another part of the campus. And so I'm primarily working with men. And so um, what's interesting is uh, we get so many different types of individuals from different parts of uh, who've had a wide variety of jobs, but really the majority of the population is we're getting people that served front lines, that were infantry, that were TAC P, Green Berets, Navy SEALs,
Mhm.
pararescue from the Air Force. And so, I think a lot of folks from those populations, don't realize they have HSP or don't really believe that they have PTSD as well. And so I was like, well, I don't know if I really have it, but I'm going to go because someone recommended I go here and get some help. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
And I'm quoting other people. This doesn't come from me, but other, veterans and ex-soldiers have told me it's a pride thing sometimes for men. They don't want to get labeled as that. They're like, no, I don't have that. I don't need that. I'm fine. I'm fine. And then also what you said about almost like a guilt, like I'm okay. The other guy had his legs blown off, so don't touch me. Go, fix that one, not me. I'm fine. Um, is that something that comes up a lot?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So it's definitely a pride thing. Funny, I have a client that I worked with. He was retired from service and he was a combat diver and did a lot of things during his career. And so, um, being a little bit older, he's like, we don't we never talked about those things in service. So nobody had PTSD then. And so it was just everyone did their job and everyone was fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But he went through and finished the program and decided that he's like, hey, there's something to this. And I had an opportunity to meet up with him again recently because he went back to school to be a licensed chemical dependency counselor. He's like, these guys tricked me. I thought we were just talking, and I didn't know that I was actually getting help.
Darn counselors.
It's like,
Right? got deceived into get better. Oh my
Exactly.
goodness.
All that woo woo.
right? The wizard.
The wizard.
It's the wizard.
What are some tools that you are using or you can recommend for both the HSP thing and the PTSD thing? We already talked about, you try to do some meditation, and obviously remove yourself from a situation. Could you explain those maybe a little bit more and then tell us what else you're doing?
For the HSP, I definitely have to find quiet time for myself. And so I start with that in the morning before I go to work, before I do anything. I get up before everyone in the house usually. And so I make coffee and then I just sit and relax on the chair. And while the coffee is getting ready, and I like just taking a moment to reflect. And, I was like, all right, what do I have to do today? And start to run through my mind. And like, okay, it's not going to be a big deal. I've done this before. I'm going to be in public. I was like, it's going to be okay. So, like, it sounds silly to do, but it's what I have to do. And then even when I'm at work, it's a private facility and there's not a lot of people from the outside coming in. But there's moments where it's really busy, it's loud, and I was like, okay, in between sessions, I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to sit in my session room away from clients, away from coworkers, and just reset.
Yeah.
So I tell my coworkers, I'm like, hey, I'll be in my session room. Don't bother me for a little bit. Like, I'm okay. Like, and so initially they're like, are you all right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I was like, but I need that to sometimes to get through the day.
And it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like just both, it helps you with both too, because I don't have PTSD, right? But I can just imagine if you're overstimulated already and you're at the max of your threshold, that PTSD gets easier triggered because you're already tense about everything else.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I have to work through is because of the population that I serve, and I come from the population of being a veteran and first responder, is hear some pretty heavy stuff sometimes, and sometimes it aligns with my own story with some of the stuff I'm hearing, and so that can be triggering. And I was like, okay, I have to remember I'm a clinician. It's gonna be all right. I'm helping this person through their situation. And, I've actually had a couple of experiences where the story aligned so much that I felt my body go into freeze mode, and it was hard to breathe, and so and then my hands were shaking, and I was like
In the session.
in the session, and so I'm like, oh, okay, I know what that is. And so I instituted box breathing a lot. And so box breathing is one of the go-to tools for me because you can literally do it anywhere, even in a room full of people. And sometimes they don't even realize that you're box breathing. And so that's what has helped me get through sessions like that. And so, and usually after sessions where I get triggered, I will call Leah or I will talk to someone at work and it's like, this just happened. So some of my own spicy memories are cropping back up. So, and then I find that going for a walk really helps as well. So just to clear my mind and you're getting some fresh air and getting the body moving. And so that bilateral movement really helps. There are times where I'm starting to get stressed. So that's a big thing. And so, the thing I have to tell the people that I work with is like, I'm telling you to do all these things because are asking you to try because I know it works. Like because I use it myself. And so that's what helps sell it a little bit easier. It's like I do these things too to get through different situations.
Yeah, it's a double-sided coin for you. On the one side, you kind of like sometimes have to relive things through other people's stories. But on the other side, it gives you an immense amount of empathy and also probably a lot of trust from the people that you work with because they know you've been there or you are there with them and you can speak out of experience.
It does help a lot coming from the population. And so at different points with different clients, especially like in group sessions, you're like, I'm not the typical clinician that will stand in front of the board and sit there and teach at the board. I will sit in with the clients, and I'll always choose a different seat. And when the other staff come in to take attendance, they're like, "Where's the clinician?" I'm like right here. And so I've gotten a few times like one of us. He's one of us. So yeah.
And actually, Mark just had a whole conversation at the conference he was at this week with a doctorate level person who was asking about the program in Alaska that he also works with, which is Soldier's Heart, and about he didn't understand or he wondered how it was different for people that come from that background who are working with veterans. Like he had to explain it to him how rapport is built a lot faster and a lot easier when you are a veteran working with veterans.
Because the program with Soldier's Heart, it's peer led, and the group leaders, the coaches, they all come from the population. Everyone who has been through the program generally wants to give back in some way. And so we end up being group leaders and coaches. So, and that's how I initially started is I went through the program myself and I eventually became a group leader and then kind of moved up to be a coach for the group leaders. And so we had a doctorate level person like was just myth, I guess. How the program works, and he wanted numbers. He wanted the statistics for. Well, how do you know it works? What are your what's your data to support this? And so it's very big into numbers. And so like, and I was like, well, our director was there, fortunately, and she didn't have the numbers in front of her, but she's like, well, it does work, and we've got information to support that. So this doctor kept on continuing on with his questioning. And so I was like, look, I'm not only involved with peer support work, I'm also a substance clinician working to get my LPC at an inpatient facility that only works with duty veterans and first responders. And I can tell, I told him that my education helps. Sure, it helps that I know what I'm talking about, but I'm a newer clinician. I've only been a clinician over a year and a half now, right?
Something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So there are other clinicians there that have more time than I do doing that work in a clinical setting, and so, but that doesn't matter to the population because I come from the population and I've been through what they've been through, and so rapport is gained much quicker, and there's more trust because I've heard a couple of times from folks who are like, well, you're not just parroting what you learned in school, and you're not just regurgitating something that you learned. And so that's really helpful. And you know, in some ways, I get a lot more respect from the clients just because I come from the population. So, and then some of the other clinicians, they say, well, I like them, they're all right, but they haven't served. So they know what they're talking about, but they don't really know what it was like.
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge part of understanding what emotionally, how it really feels like. Because you can be very empathetic, but you still don't know what it really feels like if you have not been in that situation. I think it's a huge, not saying that somebody who hasn't done that can't help people, but I think it's the cutting edge a little bit here to have someone who just knows what's going on in your inner world that you might even not be able to explain, because that's the other thing. It's really hard to explain sometimes, and then you sit there and you already know.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's something I have to remind the clinicians at my facility at work there. I've been vetted by the management. And so we usually get clinicians that are experienced and they're definitely evaluated by management, but we also get feedback from the clients. And so if a clinician comes in there and they're not clicking with the clients and they don't like their approach and there's a lot of resistance, they'll management will look at that and they're like, all right, what can we do to help you to get these clients to like you and want to work with you? And then sometimes it just doesn't work out. I mean, just let clinicians go. You're like, this isn't working out.
It's not an easy population, that's for sure.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Well, and
There
when talking to DJ back in the day too, he always told me the hardest thing leaving the army wasn't just the PTSD, but it was that complete lack of camaraderie out of a sudden. You're always in this group, you always get commands, you do what you're being told, or you tell people what to do, depending on what rank you have. And then out of a sudden, you're out in the civilian world, but you're by yourself, and that you're like lost a little bit. And then going into your facility and having people that are, again, that camaraderie that comes in because they've all been there, they've all done this. It's just a different bond and a different understanding, I think. And it takes that pulling the rug from underneath your feet. It takes that away a little bit.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we definitely find that the clients bond with each other because they've had that loss of identity, they've had that loss of brotherhood. You know, they've got free time with each other and they spend a lot of time talking. So a lot of them say, I feel like I'm back with my population, I'm back with my brothers. May not have served in the same unit or during the same time, but it's the same brotherhood.
Mhm. Yeah. Is there something you as a couple, and Aaliyah too, I want to mention, being in childcare services and that kind of realm, you have seen horrible things in your career as well and done with, having to process that all. And you've been married for such a long time. You've always been in this world, right? So what are what are some coping tools that maybe you apply to him when he comes home, where you do certain things that alleviate his um threshold, so to speak, clearing out that tank?
For all the years that he was in law enforcement, I definitely learned, and I think I still do this to a point, is I kind of, I'm looking at him when he's walking in, and usually he calls me on his way home, so I get a feel for the mood he's in or the day he had. But I'm watching him when he walks in to see his body language, to see how he's reacting to the animals in the house, the people in the house. Does he need a minute? And like, and before his counseling and before he started processing everything, I'll admit it was like we were walking on eggshells when he came home. And not that he was explosive or anything, but it was just, is he going to shut down? Or is he going to interact, or is he just like tense, And now I do the same thing. I'm still watching him, but not on eggshells. I'm just wanting to see, okay, do I need to give him a minute? He probably needs to use the restroom. How's his mood right now? How's he feeling? Do we just need to, our house isn't loud anyways. I mean, the loudest thing usually is the dogs barking when you walk in and maybe the TV. So it's like, do we need to bring down that level a little bit? Does he look like he's ready to talk right now, or maybe in an hour? And I just kind of gauge where he's at. He's probably hungry. Did he eat at work? Did he not eat at work? That kind of thing. But, like you said, we've been married a long time. We've been together 29 years this year. And so I'm usually watching his body language is what I'm doing, just to see. And I'll immediately have it figured out. Like, oh, yeah, dinner's ready. Or, if not, I would have told him ahead of time and made him stop somewhere on the way home. But yeah, and then just trying to match that where he's at. Like, let's have a little bit of quiet time, or we'll just kind of sit quietly because I know that he's processing something in his head and he's probably going to want to talk about it in a little bit. Or oftentimes when he comes home, our family's still here. Currently, we just have our youngest that lives at home, but as you know, our 2 adult kids and our grandson live directly across the street, so they're usually here. So sometimes he'll just interact with them, but I'll know that he needs to process something that happened during the day, and then once everybody leaves and goes to bed or whatever, then we can talk about whatever it is. Or just veg and binge watch a show and eat some nachos. Yeah.
Valid.
Yeah.
Valid.
Yeah.
Yeah. For everybody who's listening, who's maybe not there yet, if you're together for that long, you communicate without words very easily. You can just tell, right? You can read the energy when the person comes in the room. If you're not there yet, that's fine. Communicate with words. Mm-hmm.
I remember days when before he retired from law enforcement, where he'd come home and he wouldn't even talk to us, and he would beeline it to strip off his uniform, and I knew it was a bad day then. It was either a fatality or something usually involving death, and he would just have to strip everything. He'd throw his uniform in the laundry or whatever, strip everything off and take a shower. Like, he didn't even talk to us first. Like, he just came in and did that. And so we know, oh, this is a rough day. So, I'm glad we don't have those days anymore so much.
Yeah. One of the back in my law enforcement days, and I guess to point a little bit now, is I've always had a really good work ethic, and so I always find a way to always stay busy, which is sometimes good, sometimes not. Sometimes it's an actual negative coping skill, and you're using it as a distraction. But
It's okay, Mark.
It's okay.
But back when I was in law enforcement, just because of my work ethic and the ability to use work as a distraction, is even towards the end of my shift, I would get into something that would take me into overtime and bring me home late. I remember talking about this with some of my retired friends of when our wives would call us and they could hear the siren going, or I would call her real quick if we're on a barricaded subject or something. If I was whispering on the phone, Leo could figure out right away is not going to be home on time.
You're not calling me to tell me you're coming home right now. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And so definitely those high stress calls definitely had an effect on me. And so, you know, one of the things that I realize now is I was really good at my job. And of course, there are times when it was really fun, but the times where it wasn't fun and it was hard and stressful were those hard days when I got home, like I said. And so, and one of the things that I tell others now that I work with is just because you're really good at your job doesn't mean the job is good for you.
Yeah.
And so, and that was something that I struggled with in my career. And then it wasn't until finally towards the end of my career where I told Leah, I was like, I think I'm done. I think I'm ready to stop going into the chaos, other people's chaos.
Yeah.
Because you give it your all. And then there is nothing left. And when you talk about these staying busy all the time and doing things, then you don't have time to process, right? You have that processing time's missing and it accumulates. Do you still, Alia, do you still smudge him?
Yeah. Do. I've had sage all over our house and I still smudge him. And he'll come home sometimes and say, honey, I think I want to be smudged. Like he'll ask me to smudge him on certain days. So yeah. Oh yeah. I'm following around the animals and the kids.
Yep. Yeah. You need a Roomba where you can put your burning sage on the Roomba and it just keeps
and
going.
it can just touch everything.
Yeah.
If it didn't go under the couch and light things on fire, I would think that's a fantastic.
Yeah. I remember when you were still in law enforcement, I think you had a huge tub by the door of rock salt too, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, he would come home and he'd put his boots and his belt and his vest in the rock salt. Now we're gonna get woo-woo, but you know what? It works. So it's all about cleansing that energy. And I did it too when I still worked child protection. When I come home from different houses that you honestly would never want to be in, much less children should never be there. But I would do the same thing, smudge, and that stuff needs to go in the salt. You need to get that energy.
Yep.
Oh, God.
And one of the things about that is that I wasn't aware of any of that kind of stuff and energy work or smudging. Leo was very knowledgeable about it, and you know, I still had my doubts. I was like, okay, she's doing voodoo. But you know, fortunately though, I was open to it, and you know, and we met some other people that were in the energy work and stuff like that, and resetting their chakra.
Yeah. Yep.
I like, okay, and we did that every so often when I was still working, because one of the people that we knew was up in Talkeetna, and I'm like, we need to go to Talkeetna.
No, she was in Willow.
Or Willow.
Willa and Willow.
Yeah.
Less people might recognize that name. Yes, we love our Willa.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's just like, oh, we need to cleanse that. That hot mess that I see right now. So yeah. And then shockingly, it helped. was like, wow. He actually, and he would say that he would like feel the difference. He's like, work. Just like when I started in essential oils, and he thought those were the, oh my gosh, that's work.
Yeah, and the thing is, all of that stuff, if somebody is skeptical, which you can be, it's absolutely fine. It doesn't have to be your thing. But it's all backed by science. It's all backed by science. Sage, when you burn it, actually is antibacterial in the air. It's just like spraying Lysol, but way better for you, you know? Salt baths, they pull out toxins. When I had, I've always had severe adrenal fatigue. My physician told me, you need to do lots of salt baths for your adrenal fatigue. So it's not all just spiritual, you know. There's science behind it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we are tapping into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, use what you got.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, and that's something that I have to remind the clients is when they're not open to things, I was like, well, what have you been doing that? And there's like no response. I'm like, let's try this.
Yeah.
Let's just try it. Yeah. Why not just try it? It might be something that worked for you. So.
Yeah. I always go back. We are huge Stranger Things fans, and the guy with the Hawaiian pizza always said, "Don't deny it till you try it, my dudes." And that is so stuck in my brain. I always say that when people are like, because like, don't deny it, just try it. You know?
Just try it. You know?
Yeah, it's not going to hurt
Maybe
you.
you'll hate it. Maybe you'll love it. Maybe it'll just be in between. But why not? Life's too short not to try new things.
And it's not going to hurt you as long as it doesn't hurt you. You know, that's just
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this was great, you
New
guys.
potentially healthy things.
Yeah, right. We want healthy coping mechanisms. Yeah.
Yeah,
This
Mark
was
works at a facility filled with people using unhealthy coping mechanisms. That's why they're there. So.
yeah. I've seen it. I've lived it. So, yeah. This was great, and I really appreciate you coming on and being honest, being vulnerable, sharing your story, you know, letting other people into your world and hopefully taking something out of this. I do want to, you know, just pick up what you said as like a closing thing here. You do not have to feel either shame or guilt or like you're not worthy to go to the VA. I know so many veterans that are not even registered with the VA because they don't think that oh, I'm fine, I don't need it. No, you deserve health care. You deserve, you know, a team that's behind you. So, and I cannot thank you enough and express how I'm really like very, you know, when people say I'm proud of you, sometimes it's a little weird if they're not your immediate family, but I am very proud of both of you on what you have done. And that, Mark, you went through literal hell, but turn it around and now make it into something so beautiful to help other people. That really takes courage every day and empathy and all the heart you have. That's why I think Soldier's Heart is such a beautiful name. So I want to really, really express my gratitude on what you do on a daily basis, both of you.
Yeah, thank you. And what's really helped is having Leah there for me and be so supportive of me the whole time through, even when times are hard. So, you know, she believed in me a lot more than I, especially going and starting a master's program. Like, that's not something I'd ever thought I would ever do. But Leah encouraged me, and she's like, "You could do it. Like, you're smart enough to do this, and you have the capacity." And I honestly think, no, that's for people that are much smarter than I am. So I'm just old Marine that barely got through high school. But I think the key to everything was being open to try new things.
Yep. See? Those essential oils back in the day. Look what they opened the path to.
We call you the power couple in our house. We always say Mark and Alia, they're a power couple.
Well, we love you guys, and you are our family, so that works out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the
thank
time.
you.
I know you have a very busy schedule, and I really, I'm so grateful that you found the time to be with me. I know I harassed you a little bit about this.
Well, I'm looking forward to doing our other one too that we're gonna do. So.
All right, y'all. I hope this was helpful to our listeners, and I'm going to put some resources in the show notes as well, some hotlines, some resources in case you have PTSD or know someone who has PTSD to help you and get you on the right path. So, all right, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope you enjoyed. You can give it a thumbs up, you can give it a review, you can share it with somebody you think might resonate with this. Have a great day. See you next time.